Hello students, now let us continue with our third part of the chapter, that is the age of industrialization. In the previous parts, we studied about the music book published by E.T. Paul that had a picture on the cover page announcing the dawn of the century. In second picture given on page 104 about the two magicians. The two magicians here means one was the modern mechanic and another was the Aladdin. Next we have studied about the proto-industrialization, that is the early phase of industries. The coming up of factory, the pace of industrial change, hand labor and steam power, life of the workers during that time, and about the spinning jenny that was invented by James Hargreaves in the year 1764. Now let us continue with our third part, that is about the industrialization in the colonies. Now in this section of the chapter, we will study how the process of industrialization was initiated in the colonies. To understand the concept of industrialization, we will take example of cotton textile industry of India. Now the age of Indian textiles. Historically, India was one of the leading producers of cotton textiles. Now silk and cotton products of India, it dominated the international market. Armenian and Persian merchants took these goods from Punjab to Afghanistan, Eastern Persia and Central Asia. Though most of the trade it was carried through land routes, but sea route was also used. Like for example, some of the ports it's been used for the trading purpose, like Surat, Machilipatnam and Hooghly were the most important ports which were used for trade. Now let me just tell you about these three ports. First is Surat. The port was in Gujarat and it connected India to the Gulf and Red Sea ports. Machilipatnam. The part was on Coromandel coast. It linked India with Southeast Asian countries. And the last one is of Hooghly. The port was in Bengal. It also linked India with Southeast Asian countries. Now, before the arrival of the outsiders, the trade was handled by a variety of Indian merchants and bankers. The whole process of trade basically involved three steps. First is the financing production. Secondly, carrying or transporting the goods. Third, that is supplying goods to the exporters. Now, these supply merchants, they linked the port towns to the inland regions of the country. They gave advances to the weavers, procured the woven cloth from the ports, and at the port, the big shippers and export merchants, they had brokers who negotiated the price and bought goods from the supply merchants operating inland. By the 1750s, with the arrival of the outsiders, the Indians started losing their control over the trade activities. Now, what were the factors responsible for this change? Now, most of the European companies had huge resources, so it was very difficult for Indian merchants and traders to face the competition. The European companies were gaining power by securing a variety of concessions from local courts as well. They have a support from the government as well. And some of the companies, they got the monopoly rights to trade. What's the meaning of monopoly here? Now, exclusive possession or control of the supply or trade in a commodity or service. And basically, a monopoly is a firm who is the sole seller of its product and where there are no close substitutes as well. So, monopoly has market power and can influence the prices as well. Now about the impact on the local weavers. First point is the appointing of the Gumastas. Who were these Gumastas? They were the Indian agent of the British East India Company employed in the company's colonies to sign the bonds, usually compellingly by local weavers and artisans to deliver goods to the company. Now, the company tried to eliminate the existing traders and brokers connected with the cloth trade and establish a more direct control over the weaver. So, for that, they started to appoint the Gumastha, that is, a paid servant to supervise the weavers, collect the supplies from them, and examine the quality of the cloth. Secondly, about the system of advances. Now, to have a direct control over the weavers, the company started the system of advances. Once an order was placed, the weavers were given loans to purchase the raw material for their production. Those who took loans had to hand over the cloth they produced to the Gumastha, and they could not take it to any other trader. Means they are bound to provide the material to the East India Company only. Now, the system of advances also proved very harmful for the weavers. In what sense? Now, the weavers lost any chance of bargaining. They can't even bargain. Most of the weavers had to lease out the land and devote all their time to the weaving. Weaving, in fact, came to absorb the labor of the entire family. Most of the weavers, after losing their land, became dependent on others for the food supplies. Now, the new Gumasthas were outsiders with no long-term social link with the village. So they acted arrogantly, marched into the villages with the police, and punished weavers for delay in supply. So there were reports of clashes between weavers and Gumasthas. Now, by the turn of the 19th century, cotton weavers faced a new set of problems. Manchester comes to India. In 1772, Henry Patullo, an official of East India Company, said that the demand for Indian textiles could never reduce due to its fine quality. Yet, by the beginning of the 19th century, it started declining. In 1811 till 1812, the share of cotton textile industry was 33% of the total export, which fell down to 3% in 1850 and 51. Now here the question arises, why the demand for Indian textiles reduced? So why the demand for Indian textiles reduced? First factor was industrialization in England. Now the most important factor responsible for the downfall of Indian weavers was the industrialization in England. Now as cotton industries developed in England, industrial groups began worrying about the imports from other countries. They pressurized the government to check imports by imposing the import duties on cotton textiles so that the Manchester goods could sell in the Britain without facing any competition from outside. Second, machine-made goods in India. Now these machine-made goods were very fine and cheap, so they found a good market in India. So at the end of the 18th century, there had been virtually no import of cotton piece goods into India. But by 1850, cotton piece goods constituted over 31% of the value of Indian imports, and by the 1870s, this figure was over 50%. Now, what were its implications? The coming up of machine made clothes to India had some serious implications on the local weavers and on the Indian economy. Now, let us discuss one by one. Collapse in the export market. Before the industrialization, the Indian weavers were exporting their products to different countries of the world. But with the entry of machine made cloth, they lost their world market. Shrinking of the local market. The machine made clothes were fine and cheaper, so the weavers failed to compete with them. So, along with the world market, they started losing home market also. Shortage of raw materials. By the 1860s, weavers faced a new problem. They could not get sufficient supply of raw cotton of good quality. When the American Civil War broke out and cotton supplies from the US were cut off, Britain turned to India. Now, as raw cotton exports from India increased, the price of raw cotton shot up. Weavers in India were starved of supplies and forced to buy raw cotton at very high prices. Now, in this situation, weaving could not pay. So, here we have started with the part 4 of NCERT, that is factories in India. Now, cotton and jute mills were the first to be established in India. The first cotton mill was set up in 1854 at Bombay. By 1864, the number rose to 4. The textile was followed by the jute mill, which came into existence in 1855 in Bengal. Another jute mill was established in 1862 in Bengal itself. In North India, the Elgin mill was started in Kanpur in the 1860s, and a year later the first cotton mill in Ahmedabad was set up. By 1874, the first spinning and weaving mill of Madras, Chennai, began production. Now, let us talk about the famous industrialists who set up these industries in India. First one was Dwarkanath Tagore. He was a leading trader of Bengal. He accumulated his wealth through China trade before he turned to industrial investment. He set up 6 joint stock companies in the 1830s and 40s. Though his enterprises sank in the 19th century, but he showed way to many of Chinese traders who later became successful industrialists. Second, Dinshaw Peth. He was a Parsi entrepreneur and was the founder of first textile mill in India. Jamsetji Nasarvanji Tata. He is generally accepted as the father of the Indian industry. He had accumulated his wealth partly from exports to China and partly from raw cotton shipments to England. Seth Hukumchand. He was a Marwari businessman who set up first Indian jute mill in Calcutta. Now, what's the meaning here of the Marwari? Marwari, these are the natives or inhabitant of Rajasthan in India. So they are considered as the Marwari. Birlas. Birlas belong to the Marwari group again, who had established a business in cotton dealership. Now here the question arises, where did the capital come from? Means, how come they are investing so much in these industries? Now, as already discussed, most of the capital came from the trade and cotton shipments. Some merchants from Madras traded with Burma, while others had links with Middle East and East Africa. There were some commercial groups which were not directly involved in external trade. They were involved only in internal trade, that is, carrying the goods from one place to another, banking money, transferring the funds between cities, and financing the traders. Now, when opportunities of investment in industries opened up, many of them set up the factories. Now, let us discuss about as colonial control over Indian trade tightened, Indian merchants started facing some problems. What were the problems? First, the market within which Indian merchants could function became increasingly limited. Now, Indian merchants and traders were barred from trading with Europe in manufactured goods and had to export mostly raw materials and food grains like raw cotton, opium, and wheat, indigo required by the British. Now, with the entry of the modern ships, Indian merchants were edged out of the shipping business as well. So students, here we have ended up with part 3 of the chapter, that is the age of industrialization. I request you all to read the chapter side by side as we have finished till page 118 of NCERT. So thank you so much students for watching this video. Have a good day.